Eu convido a se dirigir ao seminário o senhor Ni Odantan, que é atualmente o vice-secretário-geral da Autoridade Internacional dos Fundos Marinhos, mas que a partir de janeiro será o novo secretário-geral da Autoridade Internacional dos Fundos Marinhos e que também nos dá a honra de participar dessa nossa reunião. Também um, um, um militante das causas do direito do mar de muitos anos. Por favor.
I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I have a paper that will be distributed to all participants. By the nature of the workshop, there are going to be overlaps in parts of my paper, parts of what Mr. Nandan just presented, and what a couple of my colleagues will present. My paper is focused on the role of the International Seabed Authority as the administrator of the resources of marine areas beyond the limits of national jurisdiction, specifically on the marine mineral resources. The Seabed Authority, as Mr. Nandan pointed out, is an autonomous international organization based in Kingston, Jamaica, that was established to organize and control all mineral development related activities in the international seabed area. We generally refer to this area as the area. This is a geographic area underlying most of the world's oceans, and based on work that is done to establish those coastal states that have continental shelves in excess of 200 nautical miles, is estimated to be about 51% of the Earth's surface. The tasks of the International Seabed Authority are defined by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, as refined by the 1994 agreement relating to the implementation of Part 11. The convention defines the area and its resources as the common heritage of mankind. Specifically, Article 137, paragraph 2 of the convention states that, among other things, all rights in the resources of the area are vested in mankind as a whole, on whose behalf the authority shall act. In addition, Section 1, paragraph 1 of the annex to the agreement relating to Part 11 states that the International Seabed Authority is the organization through which states parties to the convention shall, in accordance with the regime for the area, organize and control activities in the area, particularly with a view to administering the resources of the area. The principal organs of the authority are an assembly, a council, and a secretariat. The authority presently has two subsidiary organs, a legal and technical commission and a finance committee. The assembly, as the sole organ of the authority, consisting of all its members, is the supreme organ of the authority to which the other principal organs are accountable. Currently, the authority has 150 members, including the European Community. The second organ is the Council. The Council consists of 36 member states of the authority, elected by the Assembly in the following order. 4 members from among those states parties which during the last 5 years, for which statistics are available, have either consumed more than 2% in value terms of total world consumption, or have had net imports of more than 2% in value terms of total world imports of the commodities produced from the categories of minerals to be derived from the area, provided that the 4 members shall include 1 state from the Eastern European region, having the largest economy in that region in terms of gross domestic product and the state on the date of entry into force of the convention having the largest economy of gross domestic product, if such states wish to be represented in this group. The second are 4 members from among 8 states parties which have made the largest investments in preparation for and in the conduct of activities in the area, either directly or through their nationals. 4 members from among states parties which, on the basis of production in areas under their jurisdiction, are major net exporters of the categories of minerals to be derived from the area, including at least 2 developing states whose exports of such minerals have a substantial bearing upon their economies. Also, 6 members from among developing states parties representing special interests. The special interests to be represented shall include those of states with large populations, states which are landlocked or geographically disadvantaged, island states, states which are major importers of the categories of minerals to be derived from the area, states which are potential producers of such minerals, and least developed states. Finally, the balance of its membership is made up of 18 members elected according to the principle of ensuring an equitable geographical distribution of seats in the council as a whole, provided that each geographical region shall have at least 1 member elected under this paragraph. For this purpose, the geographical regions shall be Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, Latin America and the Caribbean, and the Western European and others group. The council is the executive organ of the authority. The council has the power to establish, in conformity with the convention and the general policies established by the assembly, the specific policies to be pursued by the authority on any question or matter within the competence of the authority. The third principal organ is the Secretariat, which is headed by a Secretary General. The current Secretary General is His Excellency Ambassador Satya Nandan of Fiji, who is presently serving his 3rd term. In addition to these principal organs, 2 subsidiary bodies perform functions of an advisory nature for the Council and the Assembly. These are the Legal and Technical Commission and the Finance Committee. The Legal and Technical Commission is a subsidiary organ of the Council, composed of 24 members elected by the Council from among candidates nominated by states parties. The qualifications of its members are those relevant to exploration for and exploitation and processing of mineral resources. The Legal and Technical Commission makes recommendations to the Council on, among other things, rules, regulations, and procedures for prospecting, exploration, and exploitation of mineral resources in the area. It also makes recommendations on the approval of applications for exploration and exploitation of the mineral resources of the area, the protection of the marine environment from related activities, and the establishment of monitoring programs to observe, measure, evaluate, and analyze the risks or effects of these activities on the marine environment. It also makes recommendations on requests by the Council. The Finance Committee was established by the Implementation Agreement, specifically Section 9 of its Annex. It comprises 15 members elected by the Assembly from nominations by states parties. Until the authority has sufficient funds or other than assessed contributions by its member states to meet its administrative expenses, membership of the committee shall include representatives from the 5 largest contributors to its administrative budget. Additionally, it shall have at least 1 member from the first batch of 18 members to the Council, and decisions of the Assembly and Council on financial matters, including the financial rules, regulations, and procedures of the authority, the assessment of contributions of members to the authority's administrative budget, the administrative budget, and financial implications of the implementations of the program of work of the Secretariat have to take into account the recommendations of the Finance Committee. The authority holds one annual session, usually for 2 weeks, during its of 2 weeks duration at its headquarters. The 14th session of the authority will be held in Kingston during May-June of next year. The main functions of the Seabed Authority. Under the Convention and the Agreement, the authority has 4 main functions. These are to administer the mineral resources of the international seabed area, which together are the common heritage of mankind. To adopt rules, regulations, and procedures for the conduct of activities. These are prospecting, exploration, and exploitation of the mineral resources in the area. To promote and encourage marine scientific research in the area, and to protect and conserve the natural resources of the area and prevent damage to the flora and fauna of the marine environment. At the present time, in relation to mineral resources, the main resources known to exist are polymetallic nodules, cobalt-rich ferromanganese crust, and polymetallic sulfides. Nodules, polymetallic nodules. The metals contained in deep seabed nodules are derived from erosion of rocks on land, which are transported to the oceans by rivers in dissolved form and subsequently precipitated on the floor of the deep oceans. Deep sea polymetallic nodules of commercial interest in the international area are currently to be found in the Clarion-Clipperton Fracture Zone in the equatorial Pacific Ocean and in the central Indian Ocean basin. Nodules occur on the floor of the oceans in a single layer. They contain various metals, among which are nickel, copper, cobalt, and manganese, and smaller quantities of molybdenum, vanadium, and titanium. The grade of nodules, that is, the content of the various metals of economic interest, expressed as a percentage of its dry weight, and the abundance of nodules, the weight of nodules per unit area of the ocean floor, usually expressed as kilograms per square kilometer, determine the amount of metals contained in situ in a given area. Nodule grades for potential economic deposits have been given in the general range of 1.1 to 1.6% nickel, 0.9 to 1.2% copper, 0.2 to 0.3% cobalt, and 25% to 30% manganese. The range for abundance is indicated at between 5 to 15 kilograms per square kilometer. Since 1958, when John Miro, a mining engineer at the University of California, first published an economic discourse on the vast potential of deep seabed nodules as sources of nickel, copper, cobalt, and manganese, these resources have dominated the imagination of the international community. The primary forum for discussions on these resources was the Third United Nations Conference on the Law of the Sea, whose decisions on a legal framework for developing these resources were incorporated in Part 11 of the United Nations Convention. The next 2 resources are cobalt-rich crusts and polymetallic sulfides. These were actually discovered when the convention was being negotiated, and they represented a scientific revolution in the international community's understanding of the way the earth works, particularly with regard to how marine mineral deposits are formed. They were discovered during the 90s and have subsequently been considerably expanded in terms of knowledge of these resources. Plate tectonics was the instrument through which these deposits, these resources were identified. And over time, the authority has been trying to make an effort to gather as much information on these resources as possible. Sulfides contain copper, iron, zinc, silver, gold, and other metals in varying amounts. Sulfides deposits occur at areas generally the size of a football field where hot springs discharge from the sea floor. This is known as hydrothermal venting. The areas are widely spaced along a submerged volcanic mountain range that is approximately 60,000 kilometers in length, at a plate boundary that extends through all the ocean basins of the world, largely within the international area known as the mid-ocean ridge. The same metal-rich C4 hot springs that concentrate sulfides mineral deposits also energize heat-loving microbes. These microbes use chemicals in the hot springs dissolved from the underlying rocks as an energy source to manufacture carbohydrates, sugar and starches to nourish themselves, largely independent of the light energy from the sun that fuels the photosynthesis in plants at the base of the food chain on land. Chemosynthetic microbes in turn are the base of a food chain that supports an ecosystem of newly discovered life forms in the ocean, which are hosted in the polymetallic sulfides deposits. Commercial applications of these microbes are being found, including their use in enzymes in DNA fingerprinting, detergents, food preservation, flow enhancement in deep oil wells, and the use of their bioactive compounds for pharmaceuticals, including some being tested for cancer treatment. A critical challenge, therefore, exists to manage development of polymetallic sulfides deposits and to ensure that what the little we know about these microbes and know about this particular form of biodiversity is properly maintained. A big and large section of the authorities' work is the adoption of rules, regulations, and procedures for the conduct of activities, that is, prospecting, exploration, and exploitation of mineral resources in the area. On 13 July 2000, the Assembly of the Authority approved regulations on prospecting and exploration for polymetallic nodules in the area. These rules, regulations, and procedures were the culmination of years of work, starting with the work of the Preparatory Commission for the International Seabed Authority, amended by the relevant provisions of the implementation agreement, and followed by a draft prepared by the Secretariat of the Authority, which was refined by the Legal and Technical Commission. The regulations consist of 40 regulations and 4 annexes, including a model contract. The adoption of the regulations enabled the authority to issue contracts for exploration for 15 years to 7 former registered pioneer investors. By entering into these contracts and allocating areas of the seabed in the global commons for the exclusive use of contractors, the authority took the first tangible and highly significant step in the exercise of its unique responsibility under the Convention to administer the deep seabed area and its resources on behalf of mankind. The terms of the contracts require contractors to provide annual reports on their activities to the authority. These reports are regularly examined by the Legal and Technical Commission. The other 2 types of mineral resources are the sulfides and cobalt-rich crusts. The authority is currently engaged in developing further regulations that will deal with prospecting and exploration for sulfides and cobalt-rich crusts. One of the several difficulties in regulating these resources lies in the fact that knowledge of these resources is inadequate, having been discovered in 1979. A tool used by the authority to gather information on the resources have been technical workshops. Through these workshops, it's become starkly evident that man's knowledge of marine minerals and the environment in which they occur is at a rudimentary stage. It is for this reason that the authority has used these workshops as a meeting point for scientists, many of whom are in the Rome right now, to assist us to gather the necessary information for making the decisions it has to make. The presentations and discussions at these workshops have provided invaluable information to the authority in general and the Legal and Technical Commission in particular. The papers presented at these workshops, along with the exchange of views that accompany such presentations, are published by the authority. Some of the publications from the different workshops include Deep Seabed Polymetallic Nodule Exploration, Development of Environmental Guidelines, Proposed Technologies for Deep Seabed Mining of Polymetallic Nodules, Minerals Other than Polymetallic Nodules of the International Area, Standardization of Environmental Data and Information, and Prospects for International Collaboration in Marine Scientific Research. A key function also of the authority is to undertake resource assessment of the areas reserved for the conduct of activities by the authority. It is recalled that the convention instituted a system for nodules whereby in applications by potential pioneer investors, each applicant had to submit application areas large and of sufficient estimated commercial value to allow 2 mining operations. The application was to indicate the coordinates of the area with estimated commercial value to allow 2 mining operations. The application was to indicate the coordinates of the area, divided it into 2 parts, and to provide all the data with respect to both parts. Such data was to include information for mapping, testing, the abundance of nodules, and their metal content. One of the 2 parts was designated as a reserved area for conduct of activities by the authority through the enterprise, and the other part was allocated to the pioneer investor. Shortly after its establishment, the authority undertook a resource assessment of the reserved areas. The resource assessment was basically trying to marry geology, the available data that we had, the technology for mining these resources, and the economic and technical conditions that exist. By definition, without having proven that nodule deposits could be actually mined at a profit, the resource assessment goes only up to the geology, the geological information that is available. We tried to do this resource assessment for the 2 areas in which contractors are now currently working, that is the Pacific in the Clarion-Clipperton area and the Central Indian Ocean Basin. At a meeting with contractors, the providers of the data that we use or that have been used for the resource assessment, and to discuss some of the difficulties faced by the authority, it was suggested that the authority would be better placed to establish a geological model of polymetallic nodule deposits in the Clarion-Clipperton fracture zone. One of my colleagues, Dr. Kodagali, will speak on this subject, and therefore I will not take up much of the time of the seminar on it. The effort we undertook was also assisted initially by the work undertaken by Dr. Kaiser de Souza, who was with the Secretariat for the initial phase of the work. Protection and conservation